Today, we're digging into the massive shift that's about to hit the world of finance, all based on the work of Sujit Sinha and Varun Saxena. We're not just talking about an update, we're talking about a complete reinvention, and it's all being driven by generative AI.
You know that feeling, right? You're on hold forever, you're buried in paperwork for a simple request, or you get financial advice that just feels generic. It really seems like a lot of banks are stuck using technology from another era. Well, that's all about to change, and fast.
Look, what we're seeing isn't just another upgrade. It is a full-on revolution. And the engine behind it all is generative AI. This is technology that doesn't just crunch numbers. It creates. It can have conversations, come up with new solutions, and it's set to completely rebuild banking from the inside out, making it way faster, a whole lot smarter, and incredibly personal.
But, before we can really appreciate the solution, we have to get a handle on the problem. So let's start by taking a closer look at the cracks that are already showing in our current banking system. So here's the real issue at the heart of it all. So much of modern banking is actually built on this clunky, old-school technology. We're talking about legacy systems, digital frameworks that are decades old. Sure, they're stable, but they're also super rigid and a nightmare to update. They don't communicate well with each other, which means a lot of work still has to be done by hand, by people. The whole setup was designed for a world that just doesn't exist anymore, and that's where so much of our frustration comes from.
And because of that shaky foundation, you get all these very real-world problems. You get major inefficiencies, which is why everything takes so long. You get these things called data silos where, your mortgage information is stuck in one department and your checking account info is in another. They don't talk, so the bank never sees the full picture of you. This kind of fragmented system is way more open to fraud. It makes true personalization basically impossible, and it's a huge headache for banks trying to keep up with regulations and grow their business.
Okay, so how do we fix all this? Well, this is where generative AI makes its grand entrance. And it's not just another tool in the toolbox, it's a complete game changer. It creates what the source material calls the generative AI advantage.
And the easiest way to get your head around this massive shift is with a simple three-step framework. We've actually already covered the first two steps, understanding the old creaky structure and pointing out all its problems. So now we're ready for step 3, unleashing the power of AI to fix it all.
Now here's what's so incredible about this change. It's the sheer scale of it. In the past, tech upgrades might have made things, say, 10% faster, a nice little boost. But we are not talking about a 10% improvement here. The argument is that generative AI delivers a 10x transformation. That is a gigantic leap, a genuine paradigm shift that rewrites the rules of how banking even works.
So you might be wondering, where exactly does this 10x power show up? Well, it's focused on 3 key areas. First, a gigantic boost in efficiency because you're automating all sorts of complex tasks. Second, a dramatically better customer experience thanks to true personalization. And third, when you nail those first 2, you naturally drive a whole lot of new revenue growth.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like day to day? Let's get into some real-world examples to make this whole transformation feel a little more concrete.
AI is making waves across at least 9 major parts of banking, everything from research to security. Now, we can't get into all 9, so let's just zoom in on 3 that you are definitely going to notice firsthand: fraud detection, customer service, and getting a loan.
Let's kick things off with security. The old way of catching fraud is all about looking in the rearview mirror. A weird transaction happens, and the system flags it after the fact. With generative AI, it's a whole different ballgame. The system builds this incredibly detailed, living profile of your normal financial life, what you buy, where you are, even the time of day. It can then spot tiny little things that don't fit that pattern in real time and block a fraudulent purchase before it ever goes through. It's a total flip from playing defense to playing offense.
All right, next up, customer service. We all know the drill, right? You can only call during business hours, and you get bounced around trying to find someone who can actually help. The new way? Autonomous AI agents that are available 24/7. And we're not talking about those simple, frustrating chatbots. These are agents that can handle really complex problems, know exactly when to pass you to a human, and here's the kicker: they learn from every single conversation to get smarter over time.
And what about something like getting a loan? It used to be this mountain of paperwork and weeks of waiting for a person to manually review everything. With AI, that entire long, drawn-out process just gets crushed down into seconds. By analyzing all the necessary data and checking for compliance instantly, AI makes a decision on the spot. The waiting game is pretty much over.
So what does this all mean when you put it together? Let's step back for a second and look at the big picture for you. What is your financial life actually going to feel like in this new world?
The end goal for all of this is something called hyper-personalization. It basically means your banking experience is no longer one-size-fits-all. Instead, it's a bespoke financial journey, which is really just a fancy way of saying that everything, from the products you see to the little nudges you get to the financial advice you receive, is all created by an AI just for you, based on your specific life and your specific goals.
So let's wrap this up with the key things to remember. First, traditional banking has some serious, deep-rooted problems. That's why it feels so clunky. Second, generative AI isn't just a small tweak. It's that 10x game changer for both the bank's efficiency and your experience. Third, the biggest change to watch for is this move away from being reactive and manual to being predictive and automated. And finally, all of this is leading to one place, a future where your financial world is built just for you.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty wild question to think about. As this technology just keeps getting smarter and more capable, you have to wonder, will the most trusted guide for your financial future not be a person at all, but a super intelligent algorithm that knows you better than anyone? The revolution is definitely here, and it is changing everything.